Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hi, and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Today, we are going to radiate hope. I am joined today by Lynn K. Russell, who is an author, keynote speaker, and just generally a very interesting person to talk about her book and her work. Now, Lynn K. Russell is from Alberta, Canada, just up to our north. And Lynn is the author of The Wonder of You, What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself. And I found Lynn from the Jim Harold Paranormal Podcast. Jim has been a guest on this podcast twice now, so I'm always happy to hear his recommendations. He's just top-notch. So Lynn, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Your story is just so fascinating. I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile right now. So you, of course, grew up in Alberta, Canada, and you had a rough start.
Yes, I have.
Tell us a bit about your rough start.
Are you talking about my childhood?
Yes.
Oh, all right. I didn't know that was what part you talk about, because there's a few of them.
There's a few rough spots, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, well, when I was 7, I was assessed as mentally slow. And I was put in special classes for children who were mentally slow. We just learned things like knitting. I remember knitting, and I remember doing woodwork. I'm sure we did basic math or whatever, but I don't remember that. So I was there for about 3 years, and we moved to a different school, and they didn't have an opportunity class. And so I went into regular stream, and then I was fine after that. I managed fine. And then when I was 31, I found out that I was above average in intelligence. And I think I don't feel bad about the school making that assessment, because I think that I do have some things wrong, like ADD, not the hyperness, but the concentration. I have to really work on that. And dyslexia, there's a little bit of dyslexia in there. And so I do have some problems, but they're not major,
Right. Well, that's amazing. Many children, I think, who do have these labels, I think it's just because they're misunderstood and maybe don't fit the education system.
Yeah. And then when I reached my teens, I wanted to marry Mr. Wonderful, of course. Right. And I thought of myself as being slow and stupid, And so I decided that if I wanted to marry somebody with a university degree or something like that, that I had to live up to that. I didn't want them to know that, what I was really like. So I started reading. And I read and read and read. I read my sister's mythology books and school from high school. And because I'd never been to high school, I went to grade 8, and that was the end of it. And then I went to the library, and I picked up some books, and I found that I was fascinated with philosophy, which was the religions. I was also fascinated with psychology and mythology. I just loved mythology, and I was just buried myself in that. And so then I went out into the world to present myself to Mr. Wonderful, and I pretended to be smart. I really thought that I was pretending.
Fake it until you make it.
Yeah, I did. And so then it wasn't until I was 31 that I found out that it wasn't a pretense. So that was cool. That was cool.
Oh, that's wonderful. And then you pursued family therapy as well.
Yes. And I wound up going back to school after I found out I was above average. Then I went back to school and I took social work, and I eventually wound up being a family counselor.
Oh, that is wonderful. And incidentally, how did you find out that you were above average intelligence? I think that's everyone's dream.
Well, it was because I was going to a psychologist, and I was having many conversations with him, and I told him that I was slow, and he said, "You're not slow." And I said, well, "Yeah, I am. I'm just pretending to be smart." And he said, "Lynn, you're not possible. It's not possible to pretend to be smart if you're not already." So he said, "Can I give you an IQ test?" And I said, "Only if you promise to give me the actual true results."
Oh my gosh, what a story. That is just incredible.
Yeah.
So you were in family therapy, family counseling for a number of years, and then after you retired, you wanted to see what else was possible for you, right? So what did you do after you retired?
Well, once I found out I was intelligent, and that's such a silly word, really, But anyway, when I found I was better than I thought I was, I just challenged myself with whatever came my way. I wanted to find out what was my limit. What could I do? What couldn't I do? So I tried art, and I tried writing books, and I just kept going. Anything that stood in my way that I thought looked like a good thing to try. So I did it.
Oh, I just love this story. How did your family react when you found out that you were actually quite intelligent?
It took a long time to catch up. they still were treating me like, well, she's not quite all there. And I just fluffed it off. I didn't let it get to me because I knew what the reality was. And so that's what they wanted. That's fine. And eventually they did come around. When they saw that I was accomplishing, that's when they started to, oh, that's interesting. You're doing that. So that's how the story goes.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, now I want to turn this conversation to your book, The Wonder of You, that I heard you speak with Jim Harold about. The Wonder of You, what near-death experience tells you about yourself and how it has an effect on your life. And so it's a book about your spiritual journey and about the vast research that you did. So, tell us a bit about this book.
Well, I've always been interested in spirituality from the time I was about 8 or 9 when I found out that I was going to die. And my mother was an atheist, and she thought that when you died, you just disappeared. And that was traumatic. I didn't want to disappear.
No. So wait, you were supposed to die when you were young?
No, I realized my grandfather died. And so that made me realize that people die and that I was going to die. And so at that point, I went to my mother because I was just terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I went to my mother, and I asked her, what's going to happen when I die? And she said, nothing. You're just going to disappear.
You're just going to stop.
And that was not the kind of answer to give a little kid. But anyway, and so that got me on my way to exploring spirituality and what did other people get out of it, and where did it all start? And that it just grew my curiosity grew. So I've studied spirituality all my life, and I've had some marvelous experiences, spiritual experiences, just beautiful, and it's just taught me so much. I've just learned so much about.
Well, and that's why we're radiating hope today, because there is more to life than what we see and what we experience on a day-to-day level.
You know, I think we give up on ourselves too soon. We get fed up with teachers getting after us and parents getting after us. And so then we do our own thing on our teens, and then we say, okay, that's it, we're finished. And we just get our job and we do whatever, and we don't challenge ourselves anymore. And that I really, really think people need to do. I really challenge the people I'm connected with to challenge themselves, because that's where learning and growing comes from.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think the moment we stop being curious, the moment we stop investigating and learning and searching, then that's the moment we begin to start dying.
Right, yes.
Now, you wrote this book from your own near-death experience, although it was just a baby one or a toe in the water.
Actually, after I retired, I wanted to write a book, and I already wanted to be a writer. So now I had the time and all that. So I wanted to write a book about a woman who astral projected. And I had her doing things I wasn't sure if anybody could really do in the astral plane. And so I thought to myself, I better check that out and find out whether those things are possible or not.
Right.
And the book never got finished, by the way.
I'm assuming that it's fiction.
Yes, it was a fiction. So
Okay.
then I went to online to find out about astral projection and out-of-body experiences. And I came across NDERF, which is Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, and Dr. Jeffery Long. And Dr. Long was looking for somebody to do research. And I said, yeah, that sounded like a great thing. And then that's when after I did 2,500 near-death experiences. And it was because in the beginning, I was interested in what happened to the people. But after a few hundred, that's old news. So then I got to be really interested in the deeper. What was happening really down deep? What were those deeper messages that were coming back? And just beautiful stuff. Just wonderful. So
what
that's
type
what
of
got me.
messages?
That's what it's all about. It's those deeper messages.
Right. Well, what type of messages did you write about? What did you find?
Well, okay, just there is one aspect with that. When I was around my mid-30s, I became very, very interested in science, and any kind of science at that point. Primarily cosmology, and I was just interested in what it was all about. And so I loved it. I loved what I was learning. And so as the years have gone by and I've kept my interest in that, then as I was learning, I saw that spirituality and science are not separate.
That's right. They are not mutually exclusive at all.
No, there's a lot of spirituality in science. There are locked-in kind of people who don't want to see it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. Right. And so that's what my book is. I have talked about what happens when you die, and that's the beginning of the book. And then I start to talk about the deeper messages that are coming back, and then I lace in the science, and particularly proving consciousness is our reality. And consciousness is our connection to source and that is the link, the consciousness.
Yes,
And that's what we call soul, by the way. We call soul the part of us that's linked to the consciousness, to the spirit, to the light.
Right. Lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Are there any stories in your research that particularly stand out to you that you think are very poignant? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you share a couple?
But the problem is to remember them all. But I mean, there's some that are just so beautiful, they just tinkle. And I have another book that I've just finished. It's not published or anything yet, and it will be. It's going to be called Your Quantum Consciousness, and it will be talking about these deep stuff. Anyway, but what? I'm sorry, I've lost train of thought of what I was saying.
If you have any stories that you think are poignant.
Sure. Well, first of all, there's one woman who I really loved her story. Her name is DW on NDERF. And DW talks about that she committed suicide. And her writing is very articulate. She's very, very well spoken. So she writes well and describes it well. And she knew that she was doing wrong, but she didn't care. She just wanted to get out of this life, and that was all that was to it. And so she wound up going directly into the light, which isn't often. Most people don't go directly into the light, but she did. And so when she went into the light, it was just she all this love that was coming at her, and she was just wrapped up in this huge blanket of love. And she said, "How come? I just did something I wasn't supposed to do. Why am I here? What's with all of this?" And so anyway, it's just a beautiful story. And she eventually gets sent back because she's not finished yet. And she's written a book, and the book is called Dead is a 4-letter word.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I know that when we know what happens after we die, we do have many times people have a complete change of heart. They have a change of personality, a change of outlook. Yes. Yeah, why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because they recognize their own reality more. Not maybe completely, but certainly more. Because one of the things that happens there is that they are connected to everything. Everything is them, and they are everything. And that's like, wow, they just didn't realize. And so that's important, that they have that feeling of connection. And that brings them to understand how connected we are here, because it's everywhere. And the other thing that helps them is their death review, or their life review, I should say, that everybody has a life review and looks at what they've done. And the main thing that it's based on, the life review, is how you treated others, what kind of person you were with other people. And other life forms, of course. And so that's what it's based on. And so that changes people when they recognize that what they've been, or what they can be, or what their role is to help in the world and make things a better place. So that changes them a great deal.
Yeah, I can imagine when we have a full reckoning. We just this feels like we're so blind normally. And then when we have this full reckoning, as I was telling you, I do quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is Dolores Cannon's method that she did and that she developed. And, so it's all about searching through other lifetimes, and it could be past, it could be present, concurrent, or it could be future, it could be between. But it is also so fascinating to see people going through that death process, going to the other side. Of course, I would do it as a voyeur, but follow them and have them describe what happens on the other side. But this life review is very, very poignant. I had one client describe it as, I'm standing on a hill and I'm looking over this valley, and there's this big quilt, and it's all the scenes of my life. Have you heard that as well?
Oh, that's lovely.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah. One of the big things that we need to understand is that there are no two death experiences that are alike, because we take an active role in creating the death experience that we experience. And so that's very important, because when you hear a death experience, it doesn't mean that everybody has the same thing.
Right. Well, yeah, talk a bit about that. What you said about how you live sets up the death experience.
Well, it's not quite. There's two aspects to what we're talking about. One is the life review, and the life review is based on the kind of person we are with each other, okay, and with other life forms. That's one thing. But when we have a death experience, we may have death experiences that have absolutely nothing to do with the training that we've had. For example, I have known Jewish people who've seen Jesus. and I've had, Christians see Muslims, or the Muhammad, or Moses, I mean, like it's all over the place.
Right.
So there isn't any one package. Primarily, people do see what they believe, but not necessarily so. And many people will have been one religion, and then they have their death experience and they say, that's not what I was taught. And so then they come back with completely different thoughts or attitude towards death and life and so on. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. I'm wondering, do people come back after that type of experience and change religions, change
they do.
culture?
Yes, they're completely different. They don't care about materialism. It doesn't matter to them. They could care less about materialism. And that causes problems with marriages, because you may have your partner that's very much into material, and you're not, as you could care less. And there's one experience that I love. This is a beautiful one. Her name is, on NDERF, her name is Mira, M-I-R-A. Excuse me. And Mira talks about being very wealthy and very successful in her business. And then she got in a car accident and she was killed. And she has a very deep experience. So I do recommend that people read her experience, M-I-R-A. And anyway, she comes back, she changes her name. Mira is not her original name, that's the name she took. She gave away everything, and she lives a very simple life now.
Wow, that is so interesting. And did that have repercussions in her family and her?
She doesn't talk about that. I had the impression that she was not married. So it would have just been family.
Right. And so I'm looking here at your book now. The following is a paraphrase excerpt from a book by Mira Sa called Entity Standing Inside Oneself, 2015. Mira was in a car accident that brought fantastic learning and changed her life. While in spirit, a knowing came to her, and she realized we never die. We are eternal. Life on earth is a temporary landing place where we reside until we return to our permanent home. Our base is the oneness, the universe, with all its variations, is God's theater, and the different souls are a vast dramatic troupe. There are many plays in its repertoire, and we enact different roles in different lifetimes. This reminds me so much of Shakespeare.
Yeah, the role part, yeah.
Right, life is a stage, and we are but merely players.
And that's true. We do play different roles. And we do have it, with each life has a different role.
Right. And so in your book, do you address, or in your work, I should say, do you address the concept of soul families?
Oh, yes. I don't know if that's in my book, but that is something that I just assumed. You know that I didn't write about it because I thought everybody knows that. So there I go.
I'm always surprised when I run into people who say, "Oh, well, they must be part of your soul family," and they don't know what that term is. They've never heard it.
Yeah. Well, it's groups of souls that come back repeatedly together, and they share the experience with each other over and over and over, and they'll take different roles. So just as Shakespeare said, on the stage, and each one is taking a different role that was different from what they had last time. So in this lifetime, they might be your spouse. In the last lifetime, they might have been a sibling, and then they might be an aunt and uncle in another one. So it just depends, and of course people are both male and female because soul doesn't have a gender. Yeah. No.
Now I have my own reasons I have my own ideas, I think I should say, of what soul families are and what the purpose is. How do you take that?
Well, I think what I do talk about is that when we decide that as a soul that we're going to come here, we make many decisions about what this life is going to be. So one of the examples would be that they choose a goal or a task that they want to accomplish here in this lifetime. So then they choose the people that will be in their life that will help them to accomplish those goals. So that would be the family and relatives and friends and people that you might just run across and not see again. So that would be one. The other thing they will decide is events that will help them in their lives, that will help them to become what they need to become, or to help them on their journey to accomplishing that goal. And for example, the life I just talked about, I can see now when I sit back here, I can see the whole pattern and how it led me to where I am today. And I wouldn't be the person that I am if I had not had the experiences that I had. So that's a second thing, is that these experiences. And the third thing is we choose ourselves. We choose our disabilities. We choose what we're going to look like. We choose what race we're going to be, what nationality, what country, anything. Everything, right? And in my book, I say right down to your big toe, if it has a bearing on your goal. Everything.
And so
that's what you're talking about, maybe.
Oh, yes. I explain it in terms of experiences, the experiences that we want to have. We have a laundry list of things that we want to have during the whole course of our soul, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Yeah. When we talk about it in terms of like what I want, what I need, what I want to have happen, it sounds a little selfish.
Well, it isn't, because the truth is that we're not a soul. This is an illusion. There is only one soul, only one, and that is the source, the light. That's the only source there is. And so that is our reality. And we are having a dream of living a life. We are the ones who is not only having the dream, but we're dreaming. We're the dreamers. We're the creators at the same time as the experiences. So so when you talk about other souls, that's part of the illusion. It's part of the illusion. We really are only one entity.
That's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful When I realized that, it was like, yes.
Right. So the idea that we are separate, that we are individuals, is really an illusion too.
Yes, and that's an illusion of this lifetime.
Interesting.
That's it just while we're here, because we need it, because we need the separation to be able to have the kind of experiences that we have here. The source cannot possibly have even a fraction of our experience without this creation. It cannot be. It can't get up in the morning, because there is no morning there. It can't go to school. It can't have relatives. It can't have loved ones, because all it is love. It just loves. And so that's why we have to be all that. There is nothing else. We're just dreaming this. and that back to the hope thing. That's your hope, because you can dream whatever you want. We really have way more power in our lives than we ever recognized that we do. We really are marvelous beings.
Mm. So this might be a really just philosophical type of question, but what is the point of it all?
What is the point of being?
What is the point of having these experiences? What is the point of this consciousness?
Okay, yeah, yeah, and that's a good question. Can you imagine being an entity that is so full of love? That's all it is its essence is love. And nothingness. Absolute nothingness. Nothing else. No other beings, no light, no sounds, no smells, no sights, nothing. That would be agony, absolute agony for the source. Mm-hmm. And the source creates because it must, absolutely must. We create because we must. We don't have a choice. And we're creating every second of every day.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Christy. I just want to say that we here at Radiate Wellness hope you're enjoying this podcast. It's free to you, and we hope that you find it informative and inspirational. Heck, even fun. We have just 3 small asks of you to help us radiate growth. First, please hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening on. That way, you'll receive a notification every time that we have a new podcast episode out. Next, please give us a thumbs up, a like, or a 5-star review. If you're feeling inspired, a positive review wouldn't hurt. These 2 small things will help others find us when they're searching for great podcasts. Finally, please tell your friends about the Radiate Wellness podcast. Better yet, show them how to find us and how to subscribe. If everyone did that, we would double our audience. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it.
You know, I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you are a Unitarian minister.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm not a minister, no. I'm a lay chaplain.
A lay chaplain. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I was raised Unitarian.
Unitarian, yes.
Yes, and now I'm Unity, Unity, do you know Unity?
Oh, yes.
So now I'm Unity. And, our theology is that our thoughts create a reality.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah.
Yes. And so is New Thought.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the science of mind. And yes, all of that is right up that alley. That's exactly true.
It's in our 5 principles, is that our thoughts create a reality. Yes. So when we have the full understanding of that, completely changes your worldview.
Yes. Yes, and that's what I was trying to talk about before. But that's exactly right. We have way more power than we're giving ourselves credit for having, and we can accomplish great things. And thought is the bottom line. That's right. It's all depending on what you allow your mind to dwell on.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to do with if I say 100 times I'm going to get a new car. I probably won't. But if I believe in my soul that that would be, how do I put it? Because that's a material thing. But if I believe in my soul that I'm a good person, that 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 life is beautiful, that I'm very grateful for what I am and who I am and what I have, then it's very likely that something good will come my way. It may not be the car, because that's a poor example, but good will come your way as long as you continue to think that that's what you deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't. Yeah.
And you're going to continue to believe that you're a low mentality as long as you believe that. But when you switch and believe that you're high functioning, then that's what's going to be your reality.
Yes, yes.
Borrow an example. But then the death experience. Why do you think then that we do have a physical death?
I think that people have a physical, and that's one of the things I talk about in the book.
Mm-hmm.
We see ourselves as physical because that's what we relate to. After we've lived a lifetime of a person, we relate to ourselves as physical. And so we create. We're the creators. We are the ones who create the death experience that we have. And we create our relatives standing there in front of us, giving us hugs. They're there, but they're in the light. They're in the light. They are soul, and they're sparks of light and energy.
Right. Well, why do we need death? Why do we need this experience? Mm-hmm.
Do you mean death at all? Like, why die?
Right.
Well, because we need to keep changing. We need to keep. Life would be. I mean, like right now, science is working very, very hard on aging, and they want to create it's to stop people from aging. I mean, they want people to stay about 30 forever. I know that's a good idea, but anyway, but if you do that, you stop learning and growing.
True.
You stop, and we need time. By the way, there is no time on the other side, and we need time to be able. Things happen in time. If there is no time, there is no growth. There is no action. There is no anything. So we need to keep coming back. We need to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. And so what do you...
We also need to go home. Sorry, I'm cutting you off. We need to go home.
We do.
To recuperate.
To rest. Woo, that was a wild ride. I need to rest.
Exactly.
Well, and then, that would easily set us up for having another different experience as well.
I'm sorry?
And that would set us up for having another indifferent experience as well.
Yes, that's right.
We can switch gears. We can switch personalities and situations.
And that's in the learning and the growing and the developing. Because what we are doing right here is going back there all the time. It's always going. There's a direct line. It's like a broadcast that is a direct line to the source. And everything we do here is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very interesting. And so what is your position on guides and helpers, angels on the other side?
Well, I think there are. Yes, I know there are.
Oh.
And it's because when we're separated, this is a very difficult place for us to be, the soul to be. Not for us. We're so used to it. The personality and the ego. This is fine, but the goal, the soul is aching. It wants to be back where it belongs.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, and so that's why.
Right. Wow, this is so fascinating. Now, didn't you have a near-death experience yourself?
Well, but it was very, very small. I mean, I only got to the tunnel, and there was this fellow with me. He was a guide, and he took me to the other side, but we didn't get all the way because while we were going up in the tunnel, and there was a light. I just saw the speck of light, and then this big booming voice came down and said, "Take her back. It's not her time." And so the guy beside me said, they're talking around me, by the way. The guy beside me said, "But she died." And the voice said, "Take her back. She has much left to do." I was about 35 then.
Wow.
So I did have a lot to do.
Yeah, you did. Well, you had just had your awakening to your intelligence.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You needed to take the training wheels off. See what you can do.
There is one other experience that I had that I think I want to talk that I think you'll enjoy. When years later, I have an experience that I have in the beginning of my book that was beautiful, just absolutely beautiful, and it was like that spiritual transformative kind of thing, you know.
Right.
But the experience I want to talk to you about is I heard a voice telling me that they wanted to use me, and I hated it. What? No way. What do you want me for? I can't get out of here.
Wow.
I was really, really, I just didn't want to have anything to do with that. I was writing at my desk. I was family counselor, and I'm writing a report. And this voice says, "I want to use you." That's it. Well, I knew where the voice was coming from, but I didn't want to. So I jumped up and I looked around and made sure nobody was out in the hall or whatever, because I'm alone in my office. And no, nobody's around. And I knew where the voice was coming from. And so I said, "No bloody way. I don't want to have anything to do with this," because I was sure it was going to mess up anyway. So, I mean, you know, whatever it was. And so I wanted to know, what do you want me for? And I'll decide whether I'm going to do it or not. But nothing. So I never heard another sound for 4 years. So I'm with my daughter, and she's a teenager, and we're in a donut shop, and she has a friend with her, so they're being silly teenagers. And this voice comes back and it says, "I still want to use you, you know." And I had just been through hell. Lots and lots of bad personal stuff that had happened. And so I just said, "Okay, fine." You know, like, no, didn't have the energy to fight. And it said, "Don't worry, I'm preparing you now." And because I said, "I don't have much to give." And it said, "Don't worry, I'm preparing you now." And that's the end of it. I never heard anything since. That's the end.
Do you feel they prepared you?
I don't know. I've asked that question a bazillion times because I've said to myself, well, what did I do differently that I wouldn't have automatically have done, you know, with my work and my writing? And I was already into spiritual, so I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, you've certainly done a lot. You've written this book on near-death experience. You interviewed 2,500 people about their experiences, which incidentally, that seems like a lot of people who have near-death experiences.
Oh, there's way more there now. It's just like on that one website, there's like 55,000 more. Maybe I would say up and around the 5,000. But within the United States alone, there's like millions. And there more and more people are having death experiences because the resuscitation and the medical profession is improving. And so, yeah.
Right. Yeah, right. What do you feel about when it is someone's time, but they are resuscitated and they're not allowed to fully pass away?
Oh, well, they just come right back. They do. Usually, like, for example, there was one man that I can think of. He was in his room. His wife was with him, and he had a heart problem. He was having heart attack. And he kept dying. And he would be out of his body, and he'd be at the ceiling looking down, and they'd be resuscitating him. And people were coming and going, and he was watching all of this happening. And then they brought him back. So then he's in his body, and then he dies again. So then they had to do the whole thing over again. And that happened 3 times. I might have him in my book. I might. But because the point was that he saw everything that was going on, he could tell them exactly who came, who was there, what they were doing, who came and went. He could remember everything. But that's what happens if it's not time for them to go, they won't stay.
I see. And there's nothing, or if it conversely, if it is time for someone to go, there's no amount of resuscitation that would keep them here.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see. Now, you had said that everybody's death experience is unique. Everyone's death experience is their own.
Yes.
What are the commonalities? Are there any commonalities?
Oh, yes, there are. One of them is no time. There's no time on the other side. And so there's no space. And so we can travel through thought. We just think about where we want to be and we'd be there instantly. Yeah. We can change our reality. And a woman named Nancy Dennison talks about that she realized this was an illusion, and she started to think about other places that she would think about being, and she was there instantly, and it was just as real as this. So, we can create. I told you about the oneness, and that's very strong. They feel this absolute oneness. All communication is done through telepathy because in reality, we're not people. We're not. And people see themselves with bodies, but that's their illusion. And the same with people who go to hell. Hell is an illusion. And people who have had hell experiences are always taken out when they're asked. When they ask, get me out of here, they are gone. They're out of there. That's one. The other thing I want to just mention briefly about suicide while I'm thinking of it. Yeah. No matter what you are trying to commit suicide for, to get away from, you don't. You have to either have another life with exactly the same circumstances, and you have to get through that life without suicide. Or some people, not a lot, but some people stay at the spirit level and they have to actually relive over and over and over what brought them to suicide so that they make a different decision. How would they have dealt with that without suicide? They have to come to that conclusion.
Wow, so they do that. So they do all of that work on the other side then.
Sometimes it's on the other side and sometimes it's in another life. Mostly it's in another life, or they're sent back. If the body can still handle life, back on Earth, then they're sent back into the body. But if they destroyed the body and the body can't handle physical life anymore, then they can do it over on the other side, or they can have another life.
But either way, they're having to deal with the issues that they had.
That's the point. That's the point.
Right, right. So it's like a driver's test. If you don't pass, that's okay. You can do it again.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they have to figure out because they designed their own life.
Right.
And they designed their life for a reason. I don't know what the reason, each one of us had a different reason, but we designed our own lives, and it's up to us. That's like a contract. We can't break it. Mm-hmm. And we have to do what we came here to do.
Right, right. Which this is making me think of the situation that we're in. We are recording March 21st, 2020. We are in the midst of a global pandemic. And I know that all of us chose to be here.
Yeah. Yes, a very good point. Very good point. And my thinking on the pandemic is, what lessons are we being given to learn? What is this about? What are we supposed to learn from this? There's something. That's what I think. And it's up to us. And it's a world thing that we need to learn, not individuals.
So, what typically happens, we do design our own life. We design our circumstances. We design our bodies. We design our families. And so, but globally, can a whole bunch of people design a global situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, because there's only one soul.
That's right. That's right. There's only one source, right? Only one soul.
Yeah.
That's an excellent way to put it.
That's a little bit confusing for us because we're so separate here. We don't see it. And it takes us a while on the other side before we start to see it too.
Tell me about that.
Even people who go into the light sometimes still, like for example, BW that I talked about, that committed suicide, she went into the light, but she still identified herself as separate.
Wow.
Yeah. And yeah, there's others that realize this is my home, this is where I am, they actually become the light.
Mm-hmm. I had told you I practice quantum healing hypnosis technique, which is Dolores Cannon's method. And we see all of this and more, and things we can't even imagine, things we're not even prepared for in that work. So literally that is a glimpse into many of the things that you're talking about. So we don't even have to have a death experience.
No, you don't need a death experience. There's one girl on, I'm calling her a girl, probably by now she's a man or a woman, I mean, but her name is Phoebe O. And Phoebe O had a death experience without dying. She didn't die, but she had the complete experience. So, yeah, and a deep, deep learning. So if anybody's interested in looking up Phoebe O, O is her last name.
Just the letter O.
Yeah, Phoebe O.
Oh, interesting. Well, I know in QHHT, whatever lifetime we see, provided it's past or in another dimension or something like that, we always like to go to the death experience. Mm-hmm. There's so much learning from the death experience.
Yes.
And then I like to take them beyond as well and explore what's on the other side before going to another. And I've also heard many, many different descriptions and possibilities for what that other side looks like. What do you find most of the time?
Most common are a garden or a beautiful park kind of place with a stream and beautiful flowers and birds and so forth. And they're all alive, including the rocks. And everything is sending love to the person who's observing this, including the water, by the way, because it's all
Because it's alive.
And the truth is that we are love power. That's what all this creation is made from, is love power. So that's our reality. Anyway, so that's one of the things. The other thing that people see is a city or buildings, and they're usually glass or crystal or ivory or, very beautiful gold and silver, beautiful buildings. And that's common. They're like edifices. They're bigger than just like castles and so on.
Mm-hmm. And a common thing that people say when under hypnosis in these situations is you just think it and you're inside.
Yes, exactly.
That's how you enter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. I love it. I just love it. It's so exciting. I just tingle with excitement about it all. Because I think, wow, this is so fantastic. I mean, I'm 82, but I still get excited about life.
No kidding. Have you ever had I know you've had just a bit of a near-death experience. Have you ever had a past life regression or quantum healing hypnosis?
No, I haven't. I know somebody who, oh, yes, I did. I had a man who came to my place, and he regressed me 4 times.
Yeah.
4 different lives.
What did you learn?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I can say I learned anything. If I had been brought to the between lives, I might have understood what I learned from those lives.
Mm-hmm.
The first life, and not necessarily in order, because I don't know, my order might be all mixed up. It's just the lives that I went to. The first life I went to, in fact, the first 2 lives, I was horrible. I was a terrible person. I was really awful.
Wow.
I was a teenager. I was having my coming out party. I was very, very wealthy. I was in France, and it was in the 1700s. And I was terrible. I was a terrible person. I was very self-centered and me, and I knew there were people out there in the town that was or a village that were starving, and to me they weren't really people. They were just like animals. They're rats. I mean, that's how big and important they had for me. I was an awful person. And then the next life, or if I'm saying next, but only because that was the next I viewed, and not necessarily the next in order. I was one of those people in the village starving. Yeah.
Oh my. Well, and that's interesting that you say about the time, that it's not the next, but it was the next one I viewed. Because the way we do time here on Earth is the way we teach it in school in like grade 3, right?
Yeah,
in the line.
Yeah. And it's not linear. It's all over the place. On the other side, all time is now, which is really crazy for us. We can't. That doesn't make sense. But yeah,
we can't wrap our minds around it.
Yeah.
And then emotion as well in other dimensions, in other places.
Yeah.
That I understand it really does not have a lot of variety of emotions. Do you think that is something that is unique here to Earth?
I'm having a bit of a hard time to hear you, but I think you were talking about dreams.
No, talking about emotions.
Emotions.
I hear that in some of the other dimensions, some of the other places, there's not the depth of emotion that we have here. That is all pretty much just love.
Well, yeah, that's right. On the other side, it's all love. That's right. There's no other emotions. At least now, when people leave their body, they will be some not all, and certainly not very often, but some people will be a little bit nervous or frightened or a little bit like, what's going on here, and then they realize, but that's when they feel this peace and comfort and it's all good, that kind of feeling. So that's, but human emotions is a human thing. However, we create it because people who go to hell or have a negative experience are very frightened and have terrible emotions while they're there.
Oh, true. This is true.
Yeah.
True. So why do you think someone would have a hell experience and another person not?
When they, and I already said this, but when they ask to be taken out, whether they say a prayer or whether they just say, get me out of here, they are out right away.
Right.
Within seconds, they're out. That's point one. The second one is when they get back to where the light is, to the positive side, and they have a guide there, and they'll say, what happened? What was this all about? And the guide will tell them that was your creation.
Wow.
You created that. It's an illusion, just like this is an illusion.
Well, both of my maternal grandparents are deceased, and they had very different death experiences. My grandmother, I would say she was mildly depressed. She was certainly a little bit neurotic. She had agoraphobia and social anxiety. When she was dying, in the process of dying, she fully believed that there were pigs in the basement of the facility where she was screaming and people were torturing pigs. She also had the feeling that someone was trying to tie her down with jackets, like a straitjacket, right? But my grandfather, who also had a difficult life, he was very alcoholic. He spent most of his time away from the family in a bar that he called his office. And, he caused a lot of problems in his family by being absent. But on his deathbed, he believed that he saw a beautiful apple tree with a bird on it outside his window where there was none. And so their lives and death experiences could not have been more different.
Yes.
Right? Do you find that common in families or people that know each other?
Well, I don't know about families, but what I do know is that your grandmother was carrying her anxiety with her into her next experience.
Yes.
And probably when she finally passed over, she would be surrounded by this comfort and peace and love.
I would hope so.
Yeah. Unless she puts herself in a negative experience, and then she, because the guides are right there to get them out. But they have to ask. You have to be asked to be taken out.
To be taken out. Wow.
Because you're the creator. And so you're creating this experience. And so you might be creating it because you want it.
That's a good point. You could be creating it because you need it for whatever reason. That's a very good point. I've been in hospice rooms with family members, different family members, and I always see some of the deceased, departed loved ones there waiting to scoop them up and take them back. Yes. And so I know that, we are met, and even animals, even our companion animals.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think companion animals or animals in general have near-death experiences?
Oh, I don't know about near-death experiences because they don't have the same.
Right.
I mean, they are conscious. I know that, and they have, but they wouldn't have a life review for one because they don't have to look at what they did, and relearn from it. They were just themselves. I think animals just automatically go to the light.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I would imagine too. But I just was wondering if you came across that.
Yeah.
An interesting thing to ask.
Yeah, I think they automatically go to the light, but when we go to the other side and we have a pet that we love, like I have my dog that I want, I'll see her when I get to the other side. She'll be there.
Oh, yeah.
And so our pets, the ones that we love so much, are going to be there for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do feel like their consciousness attaches to our consciousness.
Yeah.
And I've often had in readings, because I do readings as well, and often the pets will say, I'm just waiting for you. I'm just waiting for you to get here.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
That's true.
Well, Lynn, this has been fascinating. I mean, I could just ask questions and talk to you like for hours. This is so interesting to me. I mean, this is my work. This is what I do. This is what I really enjoy. And your book is fascinating. It's got some excellent reviews. And you said you're working on another one right now?
Yeah, I have another book, but it's finished. I just had a little bit I want to add, which is not a lot. And I'm putting in the bibliography and then editing. And it's been edited already, so it's just going over the fine points.
Mm-hmm. And what's that book? What's that book about?
And that book is spiritual science. It's taking science and looking at the spirituality of science. And I've called it Your Quantum Consciousness.
Wow. I mean, we talked earlier. Mm-hmm. We talked earlier about how science and spirituality are not mutually exclusive.
Yes, that's right.
Right? And no more does spirituality rule out science, or nor does science rule out spirituality. They really are in tandem.
Yes. And this book has some science in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but just not deep. And I actually have a talent that I'm pleased about having, that I can take very complicated scientific information and make it sound very simple and very down to earth, and without using big language. So that's a good piece.
Wonderful. When do you think this new book will be out?
Oh, that one won't be out for a long time, because first of all, I think I have already some publishers who are interested, but it takes a year and a half after the publisher accepts it before it comes out. So it's going to be 2 years or more, around there. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm still working on getting this one out into the world. And so when I get done with as much as I possibly can, then I'll go back to that one and get it finished.
Right. You know, everyone thinks that once you write a book, then that's done. It's like, that's...
Oh, no.
No. And of course, your book is The Wonder of You, What the Near-Death Experience Tells You About Yourself.
Yes.
By Lynn K. Russell. We can find it on Amazon. I'm sure Barnes & Noble as well. Any place else we can find it?
Yes.
It's all those good places.
Any of the online places that have books would have it.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Wherever fine books are sold, I think is what they say. And then...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that you're also on LinkedIn and you are on Facebook.
Yeah.
So
and I'm also on Twitter.
And you're also on Twitter. Wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you, they could hit you up on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle? My Twitter handle is ArtSoul2. ArtSoul2. We can put that in the show notes. ArtSoul2. Wonderful. Well, Lynn, it has been fascinating to talk to you.
Thank you. Can I just add a little tiny bit about...
Would you please?
Facebook, there's so many Lynn Russells in the world. And so I did have Lynn K. Russell, but somehow that got erased. So I'm Lynn Russell, and then please put in near death. Otherwise, you won't find me.
That is a very popular name, isn't
Yeah.
it? Right?
I think every family with a Russell has a Lynn somewhere.
Yes, I see on LinkedIn you are Lynn K. Russell. We need your website, Lynn.
I was in the middle of making one, and I goofed up, and I'm trying to look for somebody who's going to help me to complete the rest of it, because I need help.
Well, it would be wonderful to find you online, but you're going to be easy to find at Amazon and Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. So you're out there. And, we'll put that information in the show notes as well. So, Lynn, it is great to talk to you about all of this really heady stuff. Fascinating.
Yeah, and thank you so much for being open to hearing it all. That's great.
This is what fascinates me. This is my great passion. It's my great love. Of course, it's so interesting. So anyway, thank you for being such a great guest and explaining what you do and how you went about this book, and just what a great conversation. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.